Hello and welcome to OPod. I'm your host Jordan, my wife Iman, and we have special guest Charlie here today.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. We're going to jump straight into it. Charlie, what are your top 3 qualities about yourself? 3 favourite things you like?
Ooh, right in the deep end. So my top 3 qualities that I love about myself are my resilience. Super resilient. Like, you'll not see me fold in a situation. Like, I'll keep coming back from the depths of hell to fight. I'm very resilient. I'm very thoughtful. I think about like little details and nuances in things that not everybody might consider, and I think that's a good value. And my third one would have to be my tenacity. I don't business about asking for anything like money, support, help, like, and I think that's an important kind of hurdle to overcome, because a lot of people can especially when you are resilient and tough and used to like getting it by yourself, you can kind of refrain from being vulnerable and showing that you do actually need help sometimes. So that's a kind of new quality that I'm embracing. But yeah, just kind of opening up, asking for help, being vulnerable.
That's nice. That's sick. We've not read much into the Blair Academy because we feel like you give us a better idea of what it actually is, how it started. So
yeah,
if you could.
Absolutely. So we're a social enterprise, which throws people off sometimes. They're like, what's that? So it essentially means that we have a social impact with the work that we do, but we are a business. We make money, and we take that profit that we make and we reinvest it back into the work that we do, the communities that we work in. So we're a social enterprise. We launched in June 2018, so like 4.5 years old now. And we're centered on healthy, happy aging through hip hop dance. So we mainly work with older people, whether that be people that are living in care homes, retirement villages. They might attend a seniors club at their local community centre, anywhere really that will let me in the door to get older people moving and keep kind of their mind and their body active. I'm like, let me in. So yeah, we're all about keeping people connected, you know, giving them a chance to socialize, do something that they probably wouldn't usually do. And yeah, just giving them opportunities to like try new things, fun ways of like keeping fit. Like, you can imagine by the time you get into like your 80s and 90s, it's not like forefront of your mind to hit the gym and like, you know, you need a little bit of encouragement and kind of easing in sometimes to exercise. So yeah, we're all about bringing people together, getting them moving. We have a team of 8 people that go out and deliver workshops across London and Essex. And we've also got an online platform. So we work with care homes like across the country, again, to just kind of keep them entertained, engaged. And really it's a kind of response to what we find is like a very dated, boring, assumptive approach to entertaining older people. So you'll find like we're going to some care homes and bless them, they're still doing like Vera Lynn wartime sing-alongs. It's like, that's lovely, that like there's space for that. We love our girl Vera, yeah, but we have to move with the times. A lot of that demographic, they've passed away now, or they're in their 100s. Like, you know, if we're talking about connecting people to youthful memories and good times, we got to use music from those time periods, right? So yeah, it's just about kind of moving with the times in terms of keeping older people active and engaged. And yeah, for me, hip hop is like the perfect medium to do that, because it comes from people that didn't feel like they had a voice. They felt like they'd been forgotten about in society. And I see older people as that group now. Like, we just kind of put them in a care home and hope for the best, or you know, they're a bit of a forgotten element. So for me, it was like, oh, hip hop comes from these people that felt like they had no voice. These people feel like they have no voice. Let's bring those two together, if that makes sense.
Which brings us to the question of, so why did you start this project? Like, what inspired you? Because obviously it's something that most people obviously don't think about.
Yeah.
People. So what inspired you to start
For
it?
sure. And I didn't. Like, if you asked me, like a few years ago, like, would you ever work with older people? I'd be like, no. Why would I want to do that? So, like, in terms of, like, teaching dance, I'd worked with young people a lot, doing, like, summer camps and after-school clubs. And that was just through, like, my own love of dance. Like, as a kid, I knew what it was to have that safe space to go to express yourself. So I grew up with, like, a lot of domestic violence, and ultimately it just wasn't really a safe space often for me to vocalize how I was feeling. So when I found dance, it was like, wow, like I get to express myself and process some of these things that I'm feeling without saying anything. So I knew from like very young that dance was like a powerful tool for me, and I wanted to give that to other people. I was like, I want you to feel it too, like it's not just for us like dancers. So I always knew that I wanted to help other people dance. And then at 19 I was living in the YMCA in Walthamstow, so I left my family home following all the madness that had happened there, and I was in the hostel, and it was like adulthood just slapped me in the face. Like I thought I was so grown. I was 19, I thought I had all the answers, like yeah, I can do this. And suddenly I sat there and I realized like, whoa, I'm actually a baby and I don't know much at all. So again, I used dance like during that time to kind of process what I was feeling, and it really helped like just having that kind of escapism to be able to dance for a little bit and not think about all the other madness. So when I first started the Blair Academy, we were going into hostels and homeless shelters, and that was just because I felt like I had that relatability and I could go in and people would drop their defenses a little bit, because they're not like, oh, like who is this girl, what's she trying, they're like, oh, okay, like you've actually been where we are, okay, like, and they softened a little bit with me. So I felt like I had that kind of root in. And shout out to my old boss Holly, who used to be my lecturer at uni. She saw something in me at uni and gave me a job at her dance company. And when I told her my story, she was like, you should go into hostels, like you should go and dance with them, like it was so powerful for you, like you should do that for other people. So I did, and I thought that's where I'd stay. Like I really loved working in that space. It felt very kind of circular for me to take what was a very painful time in my life and turn it into something positive that was helping other people. So I was like, boom, tick the box. And then in my last year of uni, while I was doing my dance degree, my nan was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So they gave her like an exercise program to do alongside her chemo. And my nan was very vocal. She's like the swearing nan from Catherine Tate, basically. So she's telling the doctors left, right, I'm not doing it. It's rubbish. No, F off. I'm mortified. I'm like, Nan, please, come on. So anyway, I said, you know, let me rework it. I'm at uni. You know, I'm a break dancer by nature. So it's a super fun, energetic style. It's youthful. It makes you feel energized. I said, let me, you know, adapt your plan. We'll do some hip hop, some breaking, but we'll do it all in the chair. Like, I'll adapt it all. My nan's looking at me like, really? Like, God. So developed this program, tried it with my nan. She loved it, like, loved it. And I thought, okay, like, this is cool. Like, me and my nan will just, like, do hip hop in the living room now. Like, that's it. And she's like, no, you need to tell other people about this. Like, this is so good. The care homes would love it. Because she didn't consider herself old. So she's like, oh, like those old people, like the proper old people will really like it. She's like, you know, I don't really need it. But, you know, the really old ones will. So I did. I got on the phone. I said, look, I tried this thing with my nan. She likes it. Can I come and try it with your residents? And you can imagine, like, lots of people were like, sorry? You want to do what? You do realise, like, they're in late stages of dementia and they're, like, in their 90s. I'm like, yeah. So we had a lot of, like, head turning kind of in the beginning. But luckily there was one home that was like, yeah, like, this sounds great. It sounds like exactly what our residents need. And we're still there delivering sessions 4.5 years later. So always, like, big love to Woodland Grove, because they were the first care home to let me come in and test this crazy idea. So yeah, it just all really came from personal experience, like through homelessness, through caring for my nan. My nan passed away like 5 months after I launched the business. So that just like compelled me even further to kind of listen to what she had been saying. I was like, no, my nan's onto something. There's really something in this with hip hop and older people. Why hasn't anyone tapped into it? So I trained to be a carer because obviously I was looking after my nan, but that's just what you do for family, right? Like nobody had shown me like how to do it. So I went, trained as a carer for Bluebird, Waltham Forest. I used to go around to people's homes, get them washed, dressed, all that good stuff. And it was so fulfilling, and it was the most humbling thing I've ever done. Like, to be a young person and to drop your pride and go, no, actually, like, I'll wipe someone's bum. Like, that's like it does a lot to you. And I encourage anyone to like have some kind of experience of like looking after or supporting an older person. Like, it does a lot to you. So I did that, and I just felt frustrated really, because the care industry is understaffed, it's underfunded, and you're in a place where you've got an app and you're running into someone's home, ticking the stuff off the app. Right, I've washed them, I've given their breakfast, I've done that, and you're leaving. And you got Betty sitting there on the end of the bed wanting to have a chat, telling you about this song that she used to listen to 35 years ago, and you absolutely want to stay and give her that time. She hasn't seen anyone for months, you know. Husband passed away, grieving her dog that also passed away, like so much going on. And I just felt like I'm doing like my bit, but it's still not enough. And I don't like having to work within the kind of constructs that this industry has set. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to really push forward with working with older people through the Blair Academy. And then when the lockdown hit, it just kind of like solidified that for me, that I made the right choice, because again it was like, okay, older people are really left out already. Now they're going to be even more isolated, more lonely, more inactive. So yeah, it was a kind of a weird journey. In the beginning, like, I was dancing with anyone and everyone. I used to do parent and baby classes, hip hop fitness classes, like just anything. But very quickly the older people started to just kind of jump out to me, and now like I can't imagine doing anything else.
Oh, that's so nice.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was a lot more than I expected.
It's a big story.
No, you're doing great. I was just like, where do we go from this? Like, you've covered so much stuff already. Okay, so what has been your most fulfilling or inspiring moment of your journey so far then? Like, obviously you've probably worked with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
But
I would say when I first started, there was a big thing for me. Like, I'm from Walthamstow, grew up here, went to school here, was homeless here. And I had a big thing about like wanting to work in my community, because the first care home that booked us is in Loughton in Essex. And we started to get all these like bookings like across London, and I'm like, where's Walthamstow? I want to work with my people in my place. So a big like thing for me over the past like 4.5 years has been building up our reputation right here. And I'm really proud of how I've done that. Like, I have people like come up to me in the street saying, oh, I saw you in the newspaper, I love what you do with the old people. And I'm like to me, like, that's like so fulfilling that people like know what I do and care about it enough to come and like show me love. Like, that's like, that's huge for me. So to be honest, like every day when I get to go out and do the work that I love to do, that is the most fulfilling. I feel so lucky and accomplished. Like, if it all, God forbid, like went downhill tomorrow and like the business closed and we lost it all, I still consider myself super successful, because I've managed to achieve things that some people won't in a lifetime at 28, and I'm so grateful for that. So yeah, I would say like just seeing the impact, like seeing the smiles on people's faces, having them hold my hand, give me a hug, you know, say, oh, when are you coming back? You're not leaving already, are you? Like, that feeling of like being so like wanted by these people is just like the most fulfilling thing ever. And yeah, I've had like a few accolades that kind of mean a lot to me. Like, I've been on the news, ITV News was like my first ever like kind of taste of media. And again, it was just so exciting to me that people wanted to know my story and cared about it. Like, I didn't think anyone would care about hip hop with old people. So yeah, it's been really nice. Like I've been to the Houses of Parliament. I had like an award from the Prime Minister. So like anytime anyone of like any level recognises my work, it's really big for me because I'm like, oh, this is really something that me and my nan was just doing in the front room.
Mashallah, that's sick.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was gonna ask, what is the reality of starting all of this up? What's the struggle?
It's a lot of struggle and it's not short-lived. Like 4.5 years in, I still struggle in lots of capacities. So I think nowadays like hustle culture is like really like promoted on socials and like everyone is like encouraged to like be a boss, right? And I remember like sharing all these like memes and stuff and thinking, yeah, like CEO life, right? And actually in reality it is so lonely. Like for a long time I felt like a hypocrite because my business is about combating loneliness, right? Bringing people together, keeping them healthy and happy. And I'm sitting there miserable, lonely, running the business, right? So that's one thing to like consider as a CEO. Like in my business anyway, I spend a lot of time alone. And before I could build my team, there was no one to bounce ideas off of. There was no one to necessarily like share the pressures and the stresses with. Like it was really all me, and you have to wear so many hats. Like people say, oh, well, you know, I'm not really good at social media. Yeah, me neither, but I can't pay anyone to do it. So I have to get to grips with this.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but you know, I don't really like numbers. Like I'm a dancer, like I'm creative. Yeah, I have to do my accounts. You pulling out the money for an accountant right now? Okay. So there was like a lot of things of like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. This is not my forte. I got a first class degree in the stuff that is my forte, but I'm going to have to learn this other stuff. And still now, you know, I'll sit on the floor cutting out things for events for hours and hours. My friends are like, oh, CEO, like you shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, I think you've got the wrong idea of business. I'm like, I don't know if you quite mastered this. You know, when I first started, I was still working a full-time job. Again, people did, oh yeah, chase your dream, chase your dream. Yeah, I'm chasing my dream, but I still got to pay the bills. And my dream wasn't paying the bills in the beginning. And for some people, their dream will never pay the bills. And it's about having that understand, like, do I do this for the love of doing it? Or is there actually like a chance to make money from this? Is it a viable business? Or is it just my passion, my hobby? Like, should I keep it as that? Because it's hard differentiating. And then I think really the biggest thing is sacrifice. People aren't prepared for the sacrifice that can come with business. For 3 years, I like did not go out with my friends anywhere. I didn't purchase any clothes, shoes, stopped getting my hair done, eyebrows, nails, gave up makeup, like anything that was an additional expense for me that wasn't like food or shelter. It's like, it's got to go. Because I started translating everything. It was like, yo, if I'm going to spend £30 on my nails, I could get 1,000 leaflets for our new class that we're launching and go out and give that. Like I started to quantify everything in terms of the business. So like I slept on the floor, like I had like a little piece of foam on the floor and I was just surrounded by roller banners, leaflets. Like I got like hyper fixated in my business zone because I left my job and I felt all this pressure of like, I have to make it now. I've told everybody that I'm doing this thing and I've left my job big and bad, said, yeah, I'm going. Now I have to make it work. Like, so there's that, you know, that pressure of preparing to sacrifice. You know, I have one day off a week if I'm very, very lucky. There's times where I'll work for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on end, burnt out. And people are like, oh, you know, you need to rest. Yeah, I do. But if I don't get it, it's not going to happen. Like, it's a very sacrificial game. And it may be a case of a lot of sacrifice for a long time before you see any kind of monetary reward. Like, you know, like I say, for me, the fulfillment is a big thing, but fulfillment doesn't pay the bills. And I don't have any pride in getting my bills paid. I've wiped bums, I've cleaned toilets, you know, I worked in KFC, I've worked in call centers, like you name it, I've done it. I have no pride in keeping a roof over my head. So I think you got to be prepared to let your ego down, to make sacrifices, and to really think, you know, how bad do you want this? You got to be super hungry, like starving. Not talking about peckish, a little snack. Like, you got to really want this because there's so many other people out there that want their thing just as bad or badder. And then when you start pitching for funding and stuff, and you've got to argue your point to people and sell it and convince people to believe in you,
You go harder.
it's like, if you don't believe in yourself, how are you expecting other people to believe in you and invest in you? And, you know, so it's almost like insanity, the kind of like place that you have to be at in your head of like the sacrifices you're prepared to make, the grind that you're prepared to like put in. And I think, you know, like burnout is real, and like looking after yourself physically and mentally is so like, you are the business. If I drop down dead, right, the business falls to the wayside. Yeah. Like if I'm not mentally and physically strong, I'm not the best CEO that I can be. So there is like, you have to find a balance. But I definitely think in the beginning, go all out, work flat out.
See what
like,
works, what doesn't.
100%. Because, you know, when you leave your job and there's no one saying, okay, you start work at this time, you finish at this time, you can take a break. Like, it's really hard to navigate that space. And for me, it's not, like, I don't find it hard to get motivated and get going. I have the opposite problem. I find it hard to stop. And when I'm sleeping on the floor, worrying about how I'm going to pay the next bill, and people say, oh, you know, take a rest. I'm thinking, I can't afford to rest. And I would get offended and I would get defensive. And I think, who are you to tell me to rest? I can't rest. But now I understand what they were saying about like longevity and sustainability in my business. And, you know, me being the most important kind of cog in the business and protecting that. But I still stand by my kind of all out, going hard phase in the beginning, because I think,
as you should, it's something you should never let go of anyway.
100%, because it's what drives you. When you're having a bad day and your investors just pulled out, one of your clients is in a fit, your staff are ill, you got no one to cover, there's not enough money in the bank to pay everyone on time. Like, how are you getting up and facing that? Because for me, like, that's so overwhelming sometimes, like to wake up in the morning and think about all the things that I have to like contend with. But ultimately, I'm like, this is the life I chose. Like, this is my job as the CEO. I'm supposed to make these decisions and have these stresses. And it's not for everyone. Not everyone will be able to sit in this chair and do these things. But because I love it so much, it keeps me going. You know, if we were making, I don't know, hairbrushes, manufacturing hairbrushes, big profit margins, making loads of money, and I woke up in the morning, you know, a bit annoyed, I wouldn't think, oh yeah, I love these hairbrushes, man, I'm gonna wake up and get it. Like, you know, it doesn't give you that. So for me, it's like all like an kind of linking circle. Like, you got to really understand your why, because that's what's going to keep you pushing through the hard times. And don't be naive to the fact that there are going to be incredibly hard times. Like, business is a crazy world to navigate. But hopefully, like, for me, it's all about creating freedom in my life, financial freedom of my time. Like, I grew up watching my mum work multiple jobs, babysitting my little brothers and sisters so she could make that happen, and struggling and being in debt and having debt collectors knocking down the door. And I saw so much that made me think, I don't want to live like that.
Word.
So for me, I see my business as like the like golden gates of like, yeah, I have to sacrifice time and money and relationships and this and that. But for the bigger picture, like, it's going to be so work, 'cause I'm going to be able to pour all my time into my family and my relationships soon. So yeah, it's like sacrifice, like, but with real intent, you know, and a clear picture at the end. I know what I'm working for, so that keeps me going when times are hard.
What advice would you give to anyone else trying to get into work with older people?
Oh, well, one, do it. It is the most rewarding thing. Like, for me, there aren't a lot of opportunities for people, especially like young people, to engage with the older generation. So I feel like unless like your grandparents are alive, and even in this country, there aren't those opportunities to just have conversations. You know, we don't have the neighbourly connections that we used to have anymore. People don't know who lives on their street, and they're not watching out for Mrs. Edwards 2 doors down, and like, we've lost that. So for me, I would encourage like anyone and everyone to build some kind of relationship with an older person, even if it's, you know, your neighbor, volunteering in a home. If you do want to get into it as a line of work, like with caring, because there's so much wisdom that they want to share and they're desperate to share it. And it's beautiful to see how, like, we annihilate stereotypes. Like, the old people have these stereotypes about younger people. The young people have stereotypes about old people. And then they come together and just... And they realize they've got so much in common. They've got synergies. They've got energy to pass on. So 1 was just like, do it. 2, brace yourself for the realness. So we were touching on this earlier. Yeah, prepare for the worst almost, because older people, I've found in my experience, they don't have a filter. They've got to the time in life where they're like, listen,
I'm about to go, so
nothing you can tell me. I'm just going to say it how it is and do my thing. So, yeah, you got to be prepared for their honesty, but also like understanding that sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes you'll go into, say, a care home and they haven't been visited by their family member for months. They've been sat there watching a TV show they're not particularly interested in. The lady next to them keeps asking when she's going to go home, and they're thinking, this is a lot. You know, and then I come in with my pom-poms, hey, woo, gonna do some hip-hop, and they're like, oh, please. You know, not everybody that comes to my classes has chosen to be there. Sometimes a carer just goes, oh, come on, you'll like it. So, you know, I have people tell me to F off, to go home. What are you doing here? Why have you turned the telly off? Like, you know, lots of things. So you have to be prepared for the fact that they might not have always welcomed you into their space, and you are going into their home a lot of the time. So I think it's just like being super respectful, like, and I think the main thing is to not patronize people. Like, older people are not infants, and they've lived more life than we could collectively imagine. Like, the stories they have to tell, and yeah, I find it upsetting when people really like baby them and treat them as if like this is it, like who they are now, this person sitting in a care home is all they've ever been, because in fact they've worked incredible jobs and raised children, and I speak to people that have like been to more countries than I can name, and I'm like, wow, now you're just in Chinkford in your care home, like, you know, you forget. And I think when you work with older people, just think about how, one, like you would want your mum, nan, dad, granddad, whoever to be treated, but also how you would like to be treated as you grow old. You know, I don't want people to make assumptions about me. Go, okay, right, she's a white British lady, right, give her a cup of tea. I don't drink tea. We'll get her some knitting. Old ladies like to knit. I don't want to knit. I probably have arthritis from all the dance by then. Does she want to play bingo? No, I don't want to play bingo. Like, you know, there's so many assumptions that we make about older people. So I'll just say, don't make assumptions. Take them for who they are. Meet them where they're at. And hopefully, you know, aging is like the one thing that's promised to most or all of us. And death is it. So for me, it's like, you should spend more time thinking about that portion of your life. And I think it's something, obviously it's quite morbid. People don't want to talk about death or the last years of their life, but for me it's really important, while I can still vocalize and kind of express myself, to tell people exactly what I want, how I want to be treated, because I see both ends of the scale. I go to some homes and I'm like, have you got space? Is there an age limit? Like, can I move in now? Like, it's so nice here. The food smells amazing. And I go into others and I come out very emotional, and I think, wow, this is the reality of how people live. So I think, you know, never think like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. I won't end up in a care home. You know, it could be any of us, and there's nothing to say, you know, how our minds and bodies will respond over time. So I think it's something that people should just be a bit more aware of, like that older person that's, maybe the quiet neighbour, or
That's a story to tell.
Yeah, for sure. It's great. We have a social club that we run on Beaumont Estate on a Saturday morning, and we've got like 20 people that come full force every Saturday morning, and they've always got some piece of advice for us, you know, some story to tell, or they're checking out, like they all pitched in and bought me a voucher for my birthday, and like it's real, like we're making real connections with people, and that's what I think is important, like to connect with people that are different from you, that you might not have crossed paths with naturally.
100. That was very well said. Well, Charlie, have you got anything you want to put out there for people? Anything that's upcoming? Any events?
Well, we do have, as I say, our social club that runs on a Saturday. And what we'd actually like to do is bring in some young people to eventually take over from me and run the club for their older neighbours. But convincing young people to give up their Saturday morning to come and chat to their older neighbours isn't the easiest thing. We've been running since August and we don't actually have any young people that come along yet. So if there's anyone who's under 60, I guess.
Is it voluntary work?
It is voluntary, yeah, but we've got like accredited training through Future Formed, giving us some funding, and it's great. Like if there's anyone who, you know, needs like a work placement through college or anything like that, we're super happy to like support that process. So yeah, just a bit of a call out, like if there's anyone that watches this, I think, you know what, like I'd just like to come and watch one day. I'd just like to come and have a cup of tea with these people one day. Like please reach out to me. I'm not shy, as you can probably tell. Hit me up. Socials, the Blair Academy, all one word on Instagram. Like, I just love to connect with some more young people and show them how amazing it is to like build those relationships. So yeah, if there's anyone watching that thinks, yeah, hip hop, old people,
Blair Academy,
I'm down. Yeah, we're searching, we're looking. So hit me up.
Love that.
That's sick. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in and listening to
Opod.
I've been your host, Jordan, Iman, and our special guest, Charlie. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Woo!